Before I even get into this video, if you're here watching this video, I just want to tell you, you're doing a good job. Whether you're breastfeeding or formula feeding, you're doing amazing. And just remember that no matter how you're feeding your child, you are a freaking rock star. So let's get into this video. I hope that I can help you out. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be giving you my tips and tricks on how I breastfeed, pump, as well as donate to another family. So all of my kids were exclusively breast milk. I learned here on YouTube that if you say exclusively breastfed, it only means that the kids get the boob. It doesn't mean that they get bottles. So let me just explain that again. My kids get bottles and boobs, both containing breast milk. So with my first Carter, I was able to breastfeed him for an entire year. With my second Tanner, I nursed him till he was about 13 months old, maybe 14 months. And then Miss Ella is 5 months. I had all three of my babies back to back. I breastfed, pumped, and I've donated my milk ever since I can remember, and I do the same now. I keep my own little freezer stash for myself. God forbid my supply plummets or anything like that, and I am still donating to this one same family. I asked you guys for your questions and stuff on Instagram, and we'll get into that in just a minute, but first I want to start off with my breastfeeding must-haves. So breastfeeding must-haves, 1, 2, and 3. You're gonna need boobies and babies. Boobies and a baby. I'm trying to keep this minimal because you really don't need much, but these are just some things that make breastfeeding much easier for me. Let me start off with all of the pumping stuff that I've used and tried. So I have the Medela Sonata, the Willow Pump, the Freemies, and the Haka. I have 2 of these. Medela, this is an OG for me. I've used this since day one. I use like the older version. This is the newer version, but I love the Medela. I feel like I get a lot of milk with this. The Willow Pump, I really, really wanted to love this, but as somebody that has like oversupply, I don't find these very useful. I feel like the bags are really finicky, and maybe I just don't have enough time or patience to use them yet. I'm not giving up on them, but right now they're just not working for me. The Haka, I figured this out with Tanner, the Haka, and I freaking love these things. They're amazing because when you are nursing and you have your letdown on your other side, you kind of just attach this to your boob. So I saw a trick where you go like this, put your nip here, and then go like that, and it like makes you get more milk. Or you could just like squeeze it like this when your letdown comes in and open it up, and that also works really well. I also wanted to let you know I will be giving away 3 of these in today's video. All you have to do is follow me on Instagram at t.beaston, be subscribed to my channel, and comment below and let me know what your best pumping tip is or your best breastfeeding advice is. Another essential that I really, really love, plain old coconut oil. Everybody asks me like what I use to not like let my nipples get sore or anything like that. You can also put it like in the phalanges of your breast pump before you pump so that your nipples don't get sore. But you don't have to wash that off before you nurse your baby. It's just simple, and it's worked like a charm for every child. I've used it like on my belly while I was pregnant, and then I just use it on my nipples now while breastfeeding and pumping. So coconut oil, I don't stray from that. These are the breast milk bags I've been using. For a while, I really loved the Target brand breast milk bags, but they recently changed them and they're so thin and the milk just kind of like leaks out of them. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I miss their old ones. The old ones they had were really good. You miss them too? Thank you. I love you. You can do. Did you go to sleep already? Go to sleep. You're tired. Sorry. What were we talking about? Oh, okay. Also, vitamin D. I'm sure your pediatrician recommend these to you if you are pregnant and you don't know anything about breastfeeding yet. These vitamin D drops, your pediatrician will usually give you a sample. You can order these on Amazon, but you just put 1 drop on your nipple before you nurse your baby, or you can just put it like right into their mouth. Just 1 drop because they need vitamin D when they're nursing. These are my favorite I want to say nursing pads, because they're fabric. You can just throw them in the washer and they're super soft. These are by Bamboobies. I'll have all of this stuff linked below. But they're just so soft and they don't irritate your nipples. I realize that like a lot of the disposable ones, they just like hurt and like feel scratchy, and I don't like them at all. This is my favorite nursing bra. It has pads that you can put in it too, but the reason being is that it's so comfortable and so soft. And this is by Bravado. You know, it just has a little snap. My favorite nursing tanks and my cheaper, this is kind of expensive in my opinion, my cheaper nursing bra is from Target, as well as all my nursing tank tops, so I will have that linked below. They're inexpensive too. Last but not least, the reason I bought this is because I was really nervous with Ella about how much milk she was getting for some reason. I don't know why. Have any of you ever experienced this? Like, I thought with my third kid I'd be like so chill and laid back. It's my third kid, but like for some reason with her I was more nervous than anything. I don't know if it's because she's my first girl or what. I really don't know what it is, but I have been way more nervous with her. So I bought this breastfeeding scale from Amazon. So you can weigh your baby like in exactly what they're wearing. Weigh them before you nurse them and then weigh them after, and it measures ounces so you can see how many ounces they're getting. The reason why I brought it, my husband thought I was cuckoo, is because you can change it into a toddler scale as well. So that kind of like, you know, made me be like, okay, I can get this. So if you're worried about how much your baby is getting, definitely recommend this. I think it was under 50 bucks, where a lot of them are a lot more expensive. So let me move all this out of the way and we'll get into my breastfeeding tips and tricks and how to make more milk. I've also used this pumping bra since like day one. My best advice for these are to probably like get, for example, this is a small. This was perfect for when I was like immediately postpartum, when you're like super engorged and stuff like that. But now I feel like I need an extra small now that you know, my milk has gone down slightly. So yeah, you can see, but I love these. I've had this forever. This is probably the same one that I used for Carter 3 years ago. I'm going to hop right into your questions. The first question was, how often do I pump? So I pump in the morning after I nurse Ella. And lately I've been using the Freemies because that allows me to be hands-free and kind of like get breakfast ready for the boys and stuff like that while pumping. And then I do the same at night as I'm getting ready. Hey, Romeo. I do the same at night as I'm getting ready for bed. I've been using the Freemies. I do really love the Medela, but I just got the Freemies this week and it just felt like such a game changer. And the next question was like how long I pump each time. Anywhere from 15 minutes to a half an hour. It depends like how much milk she left, because I can kind of feel, if I still feel really full at 15 minutes, I'll continue going for the half hour. Usually I do it for 15 minutes. The next question was, how do you compare this Medela Sonata to other pumps? And the Sonata, I feel like, is more efficient than the older model Medela, and it's a lot more quiet. And those are really like the biggest differences I find. I feel like you get a little bit more milk and it's quieter. And also you can connect it to like Bluetooth and track your pump session, so that's pretty cool too. The next is how to keep going at 5 months. And honestly, I understand where you're coming from because I'm 5 months postpartum right now, and I definitely feel like there is almost a balancing of milk. Not really like it's drying up, but I feel like the first few months you are just used to feeling very engorged. However, that doesn't mean anything. The engorgement feeling eventually goes away, and then you start to feel just normal, I guess, but you can still feel your letdown when your baby's nursing. You know you're still getting milk. And also, if your baby's tongue is white, just because you're not feeling super engorged doesn't mean they're not getting milk. So if they're nursing and you look at their tongue is white, they are getting milk. The next one is struggles you did not expect the first time you breastfed. So the first time I breastfed with Carter, the lactation consultant was like, do not give a binky, do not give a bottle, breast only at least for the first 2 weeks. And I'm like, okay, like I'll do that. And that was the absolute death of me. Being his pacifier, feeling like I couldn't do anything, like I was so afraid to leave him like to even take a shower in case he needed to nurse. Like I didn't even want to like run to the store because he could only have my breast. That honestly contributed so much to my postpartum anxiety that I had after delivering Carter. I have a whole video on that as well. If you're experiencing anything like that, definitely watch that video. But I listened to her, and then after 2 weeks, no, I think I started pumping. She told me not to pump either until at least like 2 weeks or whatever. And I just felt so engorged after each feeding. Like it felt like so painful that I just decided to pump, and I started stashing tons of milk for those first 2 weeks while I was still breastfeeding him. And I think definitely that contributes to oversupply. Like if you have an oversupply and you can't get through the pain and you pump, you're going to continue making more milk. That is true. I know because a lot of people are like, you have an oversupply, why are you pumping? And I kind of always did that because it just kind of relieved some pressure, as well as I found it really awesome to be able to donate to a family in need. So one of the things I wish I knew is that, again, each person is different. Sometimes I get scared because breastfeeding is like talking about religion and politics on YouTube, so I get a little nervous. But when I gave him the Binky and when I gave him a bottle, I felt like a new person. He never had nipple confusion. Maybe I'm just lucky. I'm not saying like do that, but it worked out well for me. Giving him a bottle and a Binky was fine, and that's what I wish I would have known as a first time mom breastfeeding, because of the amount of postpartum anxiety that I was feeling from not being able to kind of get away from him, like to be his pacifier and everything. That sounds bad when it comes out, but that's the best way I can explain it. Like I needed a moment to myself, and it would have helped my mental health overall, but I was so afraid because of what the lactation consultant had told me. So that's something I wish I would have known. With Tanner, I gave him a Binky right away. If he would spit the Binky out, this was my rule. If he would spit the Binky out and would still be upset, then I nursed him. I never wanted to take away from nursing, because I always wanted that like first few days of them like constantly nursing and stuff like that to help bring my milk in. But sometimes at night, if he had just got done nursing and I knew he wasn't hungry, I'd give him a Binky and he'd fall back asleep. So that worked out perfectly. He had Binkies, and I actually started pumping on day 2 with Tanner because he was really jaundiced, and the lactation consultant wanted me to make sure I was getting enough volume in. And I got horrible mastitis. That was the only time I ever had mastitis, was with Tanner. I was postpartum, and I got mastitis twice in the first 2 weeks of him being alive. So that is something you have to be careful about, pumping right away and like getting too much milk and then getting mastitis. With Ella, pretty much the same thing. Gave her the Binky right away, first night in the hospital. Same thing. If she's still fussed, I knew she was hungry, I'd put her back on the breast. But she, as a lot of you know, had to be readmitted into the hospital for her jaundice. Her jaundice was so bad. But I pumped probably like the 3rd day with her. And I didn't get mastitis. I was so lucky and thankful that I did not get mastitis. I basically just like nursed her and pumped constantly though, because I was so afraid to get it. So those are kind of my situations with all 3 of the kids. Another thing that I really learned is that go with your mommy instincts. Go with your gut feeling, because 99% of the time your mommy gut instinct is right. So if you feel like you can give the Binky, you feel like you can give the bottle, then do that. With bonding and stuff like that, it always, in my opinion, and to me, in my situation, felt so awesome to see like my mom or my sister or my husband get to bond with my babies while feeding them a bottle. So that was really cool for me. How do you get so much at once is one of the things that I got. And honestly, all I can tell you is that I do think it's from pumping early on. Like I know it's not recommended, but that's the only thing I can really think of as to why I make so much, because the pump kind of told my body to do that. That's really the only thing I can think of. How long will you feed? I think that means a nursing session. Ella goes anywhere, like when, actually all of my kids when they were first born would nurse for like 5 minutes at a time, because I do make so much milk. I hated that because the first 5 minutes for me is like all mostly for milk. and I wanted them to get hind milk too. So that was what was cool about getting bottles, is that I knew that they were getting hind milk and the foremilk. The next one was like, did you ever need to increase your milk supply? And yes, that has happened to me. And I will say, being 5 months and not being like as engorged all the time does scare me slightly, even though I have a freezer stash. So with Carter, when I started full-blown working out again, like doing cardio and weights and all of that stuff, my supply plummeted like overnight pretty much. When I started doing like a ton of cardio and like dieting and everything, my supply was like, bye. Like, you can work out or you can feed your baby, not both. So I tried to give him formula, and he acted like I was trying to kill him. He would just like gag every time because he was so used to the breast milk by this point. So it didn't work out, and I was panicking like, oh my gosh, like, I know I have a freezer stash, but how long is this going to last, because he needs breast milk until he's a year old. So that's when I found the lactation cookie recipe that I make, as well as I found just like eating lots of oats and drinking tons of water, and I quit my diet completely. Not saying that I like started eating tasty cakes every day, but I just like kept eating and not counting calories, just like eat to be full and try to make healthy choices. I really do think oatmeal and water are amazing, as well as brewer's yeast. Adding brewer's yeast to pretty much any recipe, I think you can call it the lactation meatloaf if you want. If you want to add brewer's yeast to a meatloaf, like, you can put the word lactation in front of any recipe if you're adding brewer's yeast in there. So I have a gluten-free brewer's yeast that I get from Amazon. You can put it in smoothies, cookies, cupcakes, whatever you want to do. Brewer's yeast is a really good thing as well. Again, I cannot say enough. Drink water. Drink water. Drink water. The reason that I do so great with drinking water is because I'm constantly thirsty from breastfeeding. But if you're one of those people that needs to be reminded, set a reminder on your phone, do something, make sure you're drinking that water. And I try to make the rule that whenever I'm nursing, that's my reminder to drink water while I'm nursing. So you're putting it out, make sure you're taking it back in. Did you ever think of quitting? And yes, with Carter, I just felt so much pressure being a first-time mom, and I just felt like so not myself. And I was like, is it because of breastfeeding, or like, what is wrong with me? And really, it was just like my hormones and my thyroid was off and things like that. And the one thing I will say that truly, truly helped me is not putting so much pressure on myself and having confidence. I know that sounds cliche, and I would say to myself, everyone's like, how long do you plan on breastfeeding for? And I'm like, until tomorrow. Like, if I can get till tomorrow, instead of being like, I know I'm going to breastfeed for the first year. Like, you don't know that. You don't know what's going to happen. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself and be like, my goal is to get to tomorrow. Don't set these like huge goals. If you can breastfeed for as long as possible, that's fantastic. If you gave it your all, that's fantastic. Just don't put so much pressure on yourself. Try not to. I know it's easier said than done, but I really think that helped me, being like, my goal is to get to tomorrow. Big question I get is, how do I manage pumping and breastfeeding with the 2 toddlers? And Carter is 3, so like in the beginning, you know, he saw me breastfeed Tanner, and he would just kind of be like, oh, okay, like that's how babies eat, and he would just go and play. And Tanner was a little bit harder because he really wanted my attention too, so I always made it like, okay, I'm breastfeeding, but you can come snuggle me. Like, do you want to come sit next to me while I'm nursing Sissy, or do you want to watch this movie? Do you want to play with this toy? Like, I always gave the option, like, if you want to come snuggle me, you guys can come sit next to me too. So that helped. I also think when you have a new baby, asking your older kids to help, like, I'd be like, oh, can you get me Sissy's blankie, or get me Sissy's bib, and they are like so proud to help. And I really think that helped me in a way, if that makes sense. How long are you breastfeeding for? Till she's done. This will be the first time that we do not plan on getting pregnant immediately, which leads into other questions. So Tanner stopped nursing on his own. There's a lot of weaning questions, and I don't know how much help I'm going to be. I weaned Carter when I got pregnant with Tanner because my nipples were just so insanely sore that I like would be crying in pain, and plus he was a year old anyway, so it was actually crazy how easy it was, because when he wanted to comfort nurse, I would just give him a binky, and he was completely fine with taking a binky and being snuggled like he was nursing, and pretty much happened overnight. I did have a ton of frozen milk, so for a long time he was getting frozen milk, but that's how I weaned nursing. So I was 14 weeks pregnant with Ella when I stopped breastfeeding Tanner. Your milk changes around that time, and he stopped liking it, and he would just refuse to nurse, and he hated whole milk. So the pediatrician said as long as he's having like yogurt and cheeses, he's fine. So still to this day, he doesn't really drink whole milk. I make him smoothies and stuff like that, and that's how he gets some milk in. I don't take any supplements. Everybody's asking like, what supplements do you take for nursing? I don't. I take prenatals at night, and in the morning I take B12, vitamin D, and iron, but that's pretty much just because of my thyroid issues, not for breastfeeding purposes. Newborn struggles. Did you ever have any struggles? I told you my struggle with Carter. My struggle with Tanner was that after each kid, your uterus, I swear the contractions after birth are pretty much worse than during birth for me. So when he would nurse, my uterus would contract so much and it would be so painful that I would cry nursing him, and nothing helped me. So that was my struggle with Tanner. And with Ella, my struggle was that she would choke all the time and she would spit up constantly. She still spits up, but I have such a forceful letdown that I have to like take her off, have a cloth with me, put her back on when the letdown's done, and that still, she would actually refuse to nurse a couple times when she was first born. Chris would have to like rock her and like make her calm down again until putting her back on the breast because she was so mad about my letdown. So that was my struggle with her. There are struggles with everything, and oversupply is actually a struggle as well. A lot of the questions are about bringing your supply back up, and I did actually experience that, like I said, when I started working out. So with Tanner, after I had him, I just didn't work out at all because I was so afraid of that happening again. And now I am working out with Ella, but I will say I'm not doing cardio. I'm only doing like strength training. I'm not doing any cardio because every time I do cardio, my supply just like drops a lot. And whenever calories I'm burning, I'm putting back in. I always eat when I'm hungry. And another thing that I will say is that I do eat carbs. Like a lot of people think carbs are the devil, but when I'm breastfeeding, I need carbs. Like I will be starving until I get carbs. What is your menstrual cycle like while you have so much oversupply? Well, good question. I got my menstrual cycle back 9 months postpartum with each child. I usually get it 9 months postpartum, and we get pregnant pretty much around that time because we've always wanted back-to-back kids. However, this time we are not trying for another baby, so I'm interested to see what it's like. I will say, for me, I hated nursing when I had my period because it just, I don't know, I always get really bad cramps with my menstrual cycles. So nursing, I told you, like it gives you like those contractions in your uterus sometimes. And also I do see when I have my menstrual cycle, my supply goes down a little bit. And also they say that the taste of your milk can change with your menstrual cycle as well. And I'm just really not looking forward to getting it back. One part I don't miss. Lefty is slacking and the righty is damn near dried up. So funny because, it's not funny, but with Tanner, I had like towards the end of breastfeeding, I only had one good boob. The other one was just like a flapjack flying in the wind. And then the other one worked. So, I mean, I think it's completely normal to have a boob like that. The lactation consultant told me that it's because you have like one that you're really comfortable on. For me, it's my dominant arm, my right arm. Nursing her like this in my arm is so much more comfortable to me than my left side. And I feel like that's why my right side is always the MVP and my left side's like, meh, I'm good. Because you wind up nursing them more on that side that you're comfortable, and the baby's more comfortable when you're comfortable. How did you maintain your supply when you went back to work as a nurse? It was hard because I would be so busy in the NICU that it'd be like I probably only got to pump max twice during a 12-hour shift. But I feel like since I worked overnight, my body was like, okay, the baby nurses twice overnight usually. So it kept my supply up. I would still get like 15 ounces each session when I pumped at work. So I really think it had to do with being overnight, and do not miss a session. And that reminds me of another question I saw in there that was like, when your baby starts sleeping through the night, do you wake up to pump? And the answer is no, I never have. But this will be my first baby that I'm nursing that I didn't work overnight. So it'll be a different experience this time. I might have to wake up and pump, I'm not sure. Ella's growing. Are you supplementing to make enough for her and the baby you feed? I don't supplement, but everybody has like their own vocabulary for that. My thing is I don't supplement with formula. If you mean supplementing like a bottle, like of breast milk, then yes, she gets bottles and breast. Do you watch what you eat? I have been watching what I eat, but I'm always making myself full. So I'm trying to make healthy choices and still at the same time eat till I'm full. Like, I don't deprive myself of anything that my body is wanting. Is there any benefit to pumping? I am exclusively breastfeeding and not sure if I should pump. If you don't need to pump and you don't have the desire to pump, then you don't have to. That's completely your decision. I just wanted like a little bit of freedom away from breastfeeding, and I really, like I said, like I really liked that my husband and my other family members could feed our babies. How do you ensure it's not just for milk? And that is a good question because, like I said, I have a lot of for milk. Some people just have a lot of for milk. A few ways you can tell is if your baby's poop is green, it's usually because you have like a lot of for milk. That's where I like pumping, is because you can see the for milk and the hind milk. The hind milk is the fattier milk, the for milk is the like higher calorie milk, and they really need like a good mix of both. So since I have so much for milk for some reason, that's what I love pumping. That's why I love pumping. And I think a lot of people get scared about pumping and breastfeeding. For me, I've been lucky that if I pump, not saying like pump completely dry and then put your baby on, but like if I pump for a little while and then put her on, I can feel my milk come in again because the baby is stimulating me to make milk. Which brings me into another question, which is like what settings do you use on your pump? So when I first start pumping on any of these, I use the setting where it's like, you know, like the quick one. And then once I feel my milk come in, I will use the slower one. So it's kind of like the baby sucking, you know. In the beginning, they suck quickly to make your milk come in, and then they take these bigger gulps once your milk is there. So that's what I set the pump to do. Once I feel the milk coming in, I set it for those longer, stronger pumps. And this video is so long already that I'm going to end it here. If you have any other breastfeeding questions or anything like that, you want to see a postpartum must-haves, a baby must-haves video, let me know in the comments below. I'm just starting to get comfortable with these sit-down videos, and I'm really sorry that I had to stop so many times, but that's real mom life for you. My supply. Oh my god, this video. It's not meant to do this video. Any questions that I could answer, ask in the comments below. And if you have any tips or advice, definitely leave it in the comments below, because I love when my subscribers get to speak to each other and give each other tips. It just feels like our little Beauty and the Beastins community all helping each other out, and I truly love that. Again, remember that you are doing a good job breastfeeding, formula feeding, whatever you're doing a good job, and don't ever forget that. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up. And again, to enter the Hakka giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe on here, follow me on Instagram, and then let me know in the comments below that you've entered the giveaway and what your best advice is.
Your heart is broken.